Hello, I'm Dr. Meena Nair from Valia College, Mumbai. Welcome to the fourth academic session of our action-oriented Global Tipping Point Summit. We're delighted to see participants from various parts of India and from other countries as well, and would be very glad to see your questions in the chat box. This summit has been conceptualized by the dynamic education futurist, TEDx speaker, internationally acclaimed educator and storyteller, Dr. Coomi Vevaina. Working shoulder to shoulder with her is the summit coordinator, Ms. Donna Reen. Donna Reen is a postgraduate in financial accounting and English literature from the University of Mumbai. She started her career as an internal auditor with Lufthansa Cologne, Germany, and Travel Corporation of India, Mumbai, where she was part of the EDP department to computerize operations. She has worked on various assignments as a consultant to educational franchises involving setting up curriculum and teacher training, and has been an educational consultant with Scholastic India Private Limited, where her main focus was to inculcate reading habits in children. She also has vast editorial experience, having been associated with various publication houses like JECO, Physicians Digest, Lifeline, ADDR Technologies, Solitaire International, and Computer Business Management, that is CPM Publications. She has worked on a media project with Comet Media Foundation and the Children's Film Society of India to turn media into a resource for education. For this, she organized a film workshop for teachers and a film festival for children. She has been a part of the International Children's Film Festivals held from 2011 to 2017. She is also a corporate trainer for language and cross-cultural communication and has conducted training at the Times of India, BNP Paribas, JP Morgan, to name a few. She is visiting faculty for language and business communication at the Alkesh Dinesh Modi Institute for Financial and Management Studies, the Aliyavar Jan National Institute for Hearing Impaired, and the head of aviation, safety and hospitality and airport operations at the Bombay Flying Club, College of Aviation, Mumbai. She is also a DGCA approved language trainer and examiner for the Airports Authority of India. We now invite Ms. Reen to say a few words and then request you to view a short film on the summit. Thank you. Over to you, Ms. Reen.
It's a pleasure to thank each of you who has helped us through this summit. A summit of this magnitude could not have happened without the cooperation of so many. We have had 108 people working together, and we wish to thank each of them. A special thanks. Let me just share my PowerPoint with you. A special thank you to the esteemed advisory board, Dr. Firoza Godrej, Mr. Naushir Khuradi, Mr. Naushir Dadrawala, Mr. Sanjay Rastogi, Mr. Yazdi Tantra, Ms. Debika Chatterjee, Ms. Rakhi Chabria, and Ms. Fiona Reynolds. To the core committee, Yazdi Tantra, Deepa Soman, Milind Soman, Glenn Concessio, and Bhavin Shah. Our partners, Trent, Tantra Tech, K-Merck, Lumiere Business Solutions, Education World, Parents World, Penn Ultimate, Teachers Help Teachers, First Moms Club, and Wolves, our motion graphics partner. We have received a lot of encouraging messages from luminaries like the Dalai Lama. I'd like to read an excerpt from his letter. I'm pleased to know about the GTP, the Global Tipping Point Summit, and its focus on improving the present educational system so that the younger generation can become responsible citizens of our planet. We also have letters of support from Lieutenant General Shokin Chauhan, a recipient of 5 Presidential Service Awards, Dr. Kersi Chowda, an eminent psychiatrist, Shamak Davar, internationally renowned choreographer, Shri M. Padma Shri awardee and a renowned spiritual guru and educator, Cyrus Brocha, a TV anchor, theatre personality, comedian, political satirist, podcaster, and author, and Baman Irani, a very well known personality in theatre and Bollywood. Also, a voice artist and a photographer. And a special thank you to all our speakers, change facilitators, and participants. Thank you.
The online Global Tipping Point Summit from November this year to January 2021 is designed to explore paradigm shifts in education and parenting in an innovative way. Our aim is to create healthy learning and nurturing ecosystems by combining knowledge with self-awareness and wisdom to transform our lack-based consciousness into one rooted in abundance. Who will be attending the summit? Policymakers and education board authorities, principals, teachers, college and university professors, parents, caregivers, librarians, counselors, students, and anyone who's interested in education and parenting. What do we do differently? We have world-class visionaries and thought leaders as speakers who will expound their ideas and point the way in the right direction. They will be supported by far in the belly change facilitators who will suggest effective and practical ways of implementing the ideas of the speakers. At the online summit, participants will be invited to form action groups in the areas of their choice and to create the change they wish to see in the world. By 2025, we hope to reach out to as many people as possible through face-to-face and online talks and workshops. Come, be a part of the change. For more details on the summit, please visit our website www.gtps4change.org. See you there.
Thank you, Ms. Reen. It is with great pleasure that I welcome our speaker of the day, Dr. Coomi Vevaina. In October 2016, after many long years of bringing the joy and magic of English literature alive to countless students, she retired as professor and head of the Department of English, University of Mumbai, India. Dr. Vevaina has 2 PhD degrees to her credit, one in literature and the other in education. She has published 11 books and 58 papers in peer-reviewed national and international journals and critical anthologies. She has won numerous national and international awards. In 2013, her book on education, Sourceful Intelligence, was selected as among the 18 best books published in the USA. And her most recent book, What Children Really Want, has received critical acclaim from educators, psychologists, parents, writers from all over the world. In 2015, she was selected by the world leaders in education as among the 35 women from across the world changing educational paradigms. Dr. Vevaina has her own storytelling organization called Wordfully Yours, which hosts storytelling programs and conducts training workshops. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. Vevaina, and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nina. A big thank you to all the participants today. And as Donna rightly said, to all our amazing speakers, change facilitators, and the 108 people who've been working on this summit for months on end. Thank you. Within a moment, I start my screen, so just give me that second. Is my screen visible? Okay, great. So the title of my presentation today is Creating a Sourcefully Intelligent Evolutionary Narrative Through H-Teams. I've often been told that it's not really wise to have unfamiliar words in your title. And there are two here. Sourcefully intelligent may be a term that people are not familiar with, and H-Teams. I will come to sourcefully intelligent a little later, but quickly clarify H-Teams. H-Teams is an acronym for humanities, technology, engineering, arts, maths, and science. So with that, I begin. I'll begin with the ideas of two of the most highly respected educational thinkers in India, Jiddu Krishnamurti and Rabindranath Tagore. Krishnamurti, in his work in 1975 called Insights into Education, says, "What we need is a revolution in consciousness, for it is the only revolution that can bring lasting peace." The only revolution. And we need a revolution in consciousness. Undoubtedly, this word consciousness is rather nebulous, but let's see if we can make it really concrete during the process of this presentation. Rabindranath Tagore says, "The highest education is that which does not merely give us information, but makes our life in harmony with all existence." The key words here are harmony with all existence. The structure of my presentation is fairly simple. It's divided into two parts. In the first part, I will deal with the new narrative of conscious evolution. And in the second, how is the narrative of conscious evolution relevant to those involved in education? I will end by summing up the main ideas and giving you a few key takeaways. So, part one, the new narrative of conscious evolution. Obviously, the question which probably comes to your mind is, why talk about narratives rather than facts? We human beings live by narratives and not by facts. Our myths are our reality. We like to believe that we construct our identities and all our social institutions based on facts. But the truth is that we are narrative-loving creatures. Narratives give us meaning. So our myths are our reality. In his book of 2018, the thinker Yuval Noah Harari very pertinently says that there were four major narratives of the 20th century. Each century, of course, had its own narrative. Leonardo da Vinci gave the narrative modernity to Renaissance Europe, and so on and so forth. But there were four major narratives that were prevalent in the world in the 20th century. And they were imperialism, communism, fascism, and liberal democracy. All four crumbled for different reasons, historical reasons. In 2018, Harari talks about a crisis of narratives and says that we desperately need a narrative and don't have one. COVID has brought chaos into our lives, but there is meaning in every crisis. Today, the world is faced with a choice. between conscious evolution and self-conscious, unconscious self-destruction, or you may call it devolution. Evolution, devolution. Barbara Marx Hubbard, who pioneered futurism, very pertinently observed, what each of us does now could tip the tipping point of evolution. That's the title of our summit, the Global Tipping Point Summit. Each and every one of us is important here. Those of you who were here for the inauguration may remember the 100th monkey story that I narrated then. We all have the power to tip the scales. The tip of the tipping point is always towards more life, intelligence, love, and creativity. That is evolution. So at this juncture in time, we have a choice between conscious evolution on the one hand and unconscious self-destruction on the other. The choice is entirely ours. If we operate with a positive vision, now this word vision somehow brings to mind a positive vision always, but all visions are not positive. The Dalai Lama has pointed out that positive action comes from positive vision. There can be a negative vision. If we hold a positive vision and operate from a commitment to nonviolence, an unequivocal commitment to nonviolence, empathy, compassion, and wisdom, we could consciously ascend to the next stage in our evolution. We could perhaps consciously ascend from Homo sapiens to Homo universalis. The 17 sustainable goals that the United Nations has outlined could easily be achieved. Technology could provide us with the leisure time to really pursue our passions and do things that are personally meaningful to us. And we could be living a fairy tale existence. But if we continue operating from selfishness, rapacity, and a manic desire for material gains, then we could probably create a post-truth dystopia. Utopia, the ideal society; dystopia, the most degraded form of society, resulting in the extinction of the human race. After all, our planet has seen 5 mass extinctions, and this could be the 6th. So every single one of us is important to tip the scales in the right direction, in the direction of the survival of the species. If we embrace the narrative of conscious evolution, there will be 3 major forms of evolution which will occur: evolution of consciousness, social evolution, and technological evolution. Evolution of consciousness, which you see at the apex, would actually create in each and every one of us a deep sense of global oneness by making us self-aware and helping us regulate ourselves. Extremely crucial. Today, some of the best programs in the world are programs which teach self-awareness and self-regulation. Who am I? It's a very, very crucial question. Ancient, as old as the hills, but always relevant. Social evolution. This involves self-actualization. Self-actualization being the best version of yourself. We popularly put it as the best version of yourself. Self-actualization at both the individual and at the collective level. So the individual being the best version of himself or herself, the collective, the society being the best version of itself. And technological evolution guided by ethics. We need to remain masters and not slaves of technology. Early in the 20th century, the British novelist D.H. Lawrence observed, "For God's sake, let us be men, not monkeys minding machines. How important. And this brings me to the second part of my presentation. Now, how is this philosophical narrative of conscious evolution relevant to you and me who are involved in education? Let's begin with the evolution of consciousness. What can education aim to do? Education can create the sense of global oneness triggered by self-awareness and self-regulation. Sometimes these two terms are used synonymously, but they're different. I may be aware of myself. I may be aware of why I behave. Of course, this is a moment-to-moment change. It involves self-reflection, which is almost perennial at all times. Why am I doing the things I'm doing? What triggers me? What makes me angry? And then self-regulation. When this happens to me, how do I handle myself effectively? So these two are crucial. What is very interesting about the diagram I just showed you is that you could begin from any of the 3 points because all 3 are interconnected. You could start from one, but you end up covering all 3. The second is social evolution. Now, what can education aim to do here? Assist self-actualization at the individual level. And today, I think educational thinkers and teachers are doing a great job of it. We have all embraced the idea of multiple intelligences. Of course, Howard Gardner put it across very beautifully, but this idea has been building up for several years. We respect the individual capacities of children. We want to assess their capacities and not the deficiencies. We talk about the several multiple intelligences out of which all of us have 3 at least. So nobody, absolutely nobody is unintelligent. The question we are asking today is not, is Gauri intelligent? But in what way is Gauri intelligent? So we have happily embraced multiple intelligences. The whole idea of inclusivity is now very, very cherished by most educationists all over the world, very crucial again, and the creation of personalized learning plans for children. All this shows the desire on our part to really help every child become the best version of himself or herself. Great, we are doing a great job here. But social evolution will also include self-actualization at the collective level. So the fierce individualism, which was part of our academic system, is now increasingly giving way to collaborative or social learning. We value project-based learning. We had one of our earlier speakers, Mr. Manit Jain, and his team talk about experiential learning. But there is phenomenon-based learning. All of this involves the group, the collective. And of course, accordingly, assessment ways also change. So collaborative learning with an emphasis on social justice issues, on issues which have caused unnecessary suffering, issues like racism, sexism, classism, ageism, ability issues. These are all social justice issues among the many, many more. And we are becoming increasingly aware of them. And in the context of human rights. So social evolution, we seem to be doing pretty well in this area. Technological evolution. What can education aim to do here? Humanize technology and ensure that it is rooted in digital ethics. This is a term that futurists are increasingly emphasizing, so that technology works for the good of humankind. This would enable us to invest in relationships with humans rather than machines. We see a danger here. We see that if we are overly enamored with our machines, human relationships suffer. So, how can we achieve these three forms of evolution through education? So first we talked about the narrative of conscious evolution. Then we talked about what educationists need to do, but how do they actually implement it? Through consciousness changing, sourceful education. Bear with me for a moment and I will make this term clear. In learning communities, most people today prefer the term learning communities to schools because it's completely non-hierarchical. And in our vision statement also, we have talked about our desire to see rigid education systems give way to dynamic, interconnected learning ecosystems. The very word system suggests hierarchy. So learning communities is a far better term. And secondly, through learner-centric ways of teaching and assessing H teams, just reminding humanities, technology, engineering, arts, maths, and science, rather than STEM. This trend is extremely dangerous. By only emphasizing science, technology, engineering, and maths, and regarding the arts and humanities as peripheral rather than vital, we endanger our survival on this planet, literally. So now I'll start with the first one. How do we work with sourceful education? Through consciousness changing education in learning communities. Sourceful education is meant to transition the learning community, teachers, facilitators, students, everyone, from a self versus other consciousness. Does it always have to be me versus you? Do I have to be in competition with everyone? But this is the way we are socialized. We grow up hearing, mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all? Who is the richest of them all? Who is the best of them all? We enter school as remarkable human beings. But the minute we cross the threshold, we become markable human beings. We need competition, only to spur us a little bit. We need as much of competition as much of salt in food. Nothing more. Too much of competition destroys the joy of learning and of living. So can we transition our learners from a self versus other consciousness, me versus you, to a self and other consciousness, which is me and you, which is cooperation, which is collaboration, which is honoring what you know while you honor what I know. Children, as Madame Montessori so pertinently observed, are never a blank slate. These systems, alternative systems of education, like Montessori education, the Waldorf-Steiner education, Krishnamurti education, they deeply value the wisdom that the child has come into the world with. So if we really believe that and we honor the child, every child based on his or her configuration of intelligences, then we can easily transition from a self versus other to a self and other, to an all is self. There is no other, all is self. Now these first two concepts seem clear, but what is this all is self? Quantum physics today valorizes ancient wisdom, which has always told us that we are intrinsically interconnected. We may believe that we are separate, but that is an illusion. There is a matrix, and that matrix connects us. One of the best known quantum physicists, David Bohm, talks about an explicit order at the level of which every single person is different. You are different from me, I'm different from you, the phone, the cabinet, the water bottle, everything is different. But, says David Bohm, at the deeper level, at the level of the implicate order, we are all interconnected. how vital is this? If this consciousness is kept in mind while we are really engaging in learning, we don't then necessarily have to teach our students separately what is emotional intelligence, what is social intelligence, what is ethical intelligence, what are the other intelligences, spiritual intelligence. It all comes together. It all falls into place with all itself. Now, this concept may seem interesting, but how do we as teachers transact it in the classroom? We'll see that in a moment. This intelligence is what I call sourceful intelligence. I define this as sourceful intelligence is the unique capacity that we human beings have of understanding and experiencing our uniqueness and our oneness. This is a rough sketch of the mind. The upper layers of our mind make us aware of our uniqueness, but the deeper layers of our mind make us aware of our essential oneness. And that is why myth and literature and the arts endure, because it taps into the collective unconscious and the deep self, the deeper layers of our mind. In the classroom, if we adopt this thinking procedure, which I call Technopoesis, then we can transition our learners in a very subtle and a very non-dogmatic way from a self versus other to a self and other to an all is self-consciousness. I have elaborated on Technopoesis in all my writing and in my TEDx talks. I will not be going into details right now, but this is what we are going to use for our project later on. Very quickly, if I were to run through it, the first step in Technopoesis is relevance. Why am I learning this? Why am I learning Shakespeare, who wrote in Thee, Thou, 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 Thum 450 years ago? Well, because he's relevant now. So now we are not going to preach, but we are going to make the learners appreciate the relevance. The next step is analysis, and there all our diverse pedagogies come in, where learner-centric pedagogies, where we encourage the learners to do the analysis. The third step is skill development, what we call competencies sometimes. These competencies are both discipline-specific and life competencies. These first three steps keep us in this state of self versus other consciousness because we develop differently. But the next three, interlinking, when we are talking about interlinking, it's much more than multidisciplinary. We bring in the arts, we bring in music, dance, everything to valorize concepts. Very importantly, the next step is probing and reflection, where we allow deep thinking and deep learning to occur. The next step is action. If something is relevant, then it should result in action of a kind. And the last step, which is the all is self step, is awareness of oneness. When I first started using Technopoesis and teachers started using it in India and abroad, I was very apprehensive. I thought the teachers teaching the humanities and arts and languages would be able to adopt it. But would science and math teachers be able to do it? And to my absolute surprise and delight, math science teachers, management teachers, public relations professors have been able to use this method very, very skillfully. So that brings us now to the second aspect, that we could really develop conscious evolution through learner-centric teaching and assessing, not testing, H-teams, humanities, technology, engineering, arts, maths, and science, facilitate the evolution of consciousness, social evolution, and technological evolution. Each one would probably merit a workshop if I were to expand on it. In the process, when we use the arts and when we use humanities instead of merely STEM, all the 21st century skills or competencies also get developed in the process. Critical reflection, creative thinking, very, very importantly, change orientation. Because we really do not know what we are preparing our children for. What kind of jobs are we preparing them for? 65% of the jobs that we know today will be rendered irrelevant by high tech in the next few years. Compassion and empathy, very importantly, collaboration and communication excellence. All these get developed if we include the humanities and arts in our curriculum. Arts and humanities tap into the power of emotions to release memory proteins, dopamine for elation and excitement, endorphins and noradrenaline for heightened attention. It's a win-win situation. Arts and the humanities also encourage synapse stimulating environment that leads to nuanced thinking. This is extremely important. Naive technophilia could lead us to a black hole. We do need to think about the deeper implications. Our thinking needs to be nuanced. And that is what arts and the humanities stimulate. It is only consciousness changing education and H teams that will prevent technology from trumping humanity. So I think understanding the importance of H teams and allowing H teams into the curriculum is absolutely vital. What have been the key takeaways of my presentation today? Number one, why do we need a new narrative? Number two, the need to embrace the narrative of conscious evolution. Number three, the three forms of evolution that the conscious evolution narrative will ensure will be evolution of consciousness, social evolution, and technological evolution. How the narrative of conscious evolution is relevant to those involved in education, we discussed that. And we talked very briefly about the importance of consciousness changing sourceful education and the importance of H teams. I have a wonderful team of women working with me on this project. They all come in with amazing capacities. And what we are going to talk about is empowering stories using Technopoesis, the ladder diagram, for Earth Love Mission, in short, ELM. Using Technopoesis to analyze carefully curated stories. So we're going to work with stories for the evolution of consciousness, social evolution, and technological evolution. I would like to say this about myself. The words of Robert Frost, the American poet, are absolutely pertinent. I am not a teacher. I am an awakener. That's all. I can do nothing more. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so very much for sharing what is possibly the poetic and the spiritual heart of this entire summit. Ma'am, may I request you to kindly explain the structure of the summit now? Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. This summit has been conceptualized to be a little different from what we normally know as seminars, conferences, webinars, whatever. This is a project-oriented summit. At the heart is a speaker. As you heard me speaking for 25 minutes, but there have been 4 change facilitators. You can see them marked in blue in the diagram, who have been working with me for over months. So what the change facilitators are going to do is they're going to carry out the mini project that I named at the end of my presentation. Whom will they teach? Anyone. Any one of you sitting in the audience today could sign up as an action group member. The 4 change facilitators deal with 4 different aspects of the project, and they will talk about it very soon. They will provide training to the action group members over 3 months, 12 hours of a teaching module, which is available to one and all entirely free. The action group members understand the basic concept, and then they go out into the world and make a change. They create their own groups, they make a change. This will go on for the next 12 months, at the end of which we will create an impact report and hopefully pass these findings on to the government to say that these are not mere words, this is what we have actually achieved. So this is the intention behind the Global Tipping Point Summit. At the end of 1 year, this project is declared complete, and we will have the next Global Tipping Point Summit with new speakers and new projects coming in. So I encourage you to listen carefully to the words of our change facilitators. And if you feel so inclined, please sign up. We have the Google Forms available on our website from tomorrow. You can sign up and become action group members and get this wonderful training. So thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. We go on to welcome our change facilitators. Our first change facilitator is Ms. Priyanka Shah. Priyanka is an educator trained in both psychotherapy and theatre. In 2010, she founded PUCK, an educational theatre space that encapsulated her visionary approach to academia and child development. She also teaches English and Global Perspectives at the Bombay International School. She has a bachelor in law, a master's in education, with specialization in instructional leadership and policy studies. Welcome, Ms. Shah, and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nina. As Dr. Coomi has just said, the goal of our action project is empowering stories with Technopoesis for the Earth Love mission. And Technopoesis is a thinking process where we go from self versus others to all is self. As explained by Dr. Vevaina, each of us will be choosing an area of focus from the Earth Love mission that has been created by her. The Earth Love mission is a part of the dream envisioned and put into action by Dr. Coomi to facilitate a global youth movement by enabling children aged 6 to 12 to proactively create a better world by revisiting existing evolutionary narratives and creating new ones. The goal is to support the growth of an expanded consciousness. The ultimate goal of teaching technopoetically is to help all understand the idea of what oneness means and to use these focus areas as our guidelines to shed away our barriers and presumptions accumulated over time. In the action group facilitated by me, we would focus on education, gender equality, and legal access. Legal access has been a bigger issue today than it has ever been in the past, with courts having limited hearings in the past couple of months. Every legal system creates a set of rules which differ from one country to another. Every case before a court is a story by itself. And if we think about them technopoetically, the future seems less bleak and more full of possibilities. Hence, in our action group, we will be looking at popular folk narratives, graphic novels, and comics technopoetically. And looking at the ideas of fairness, right and wrong, justice and injustice, to try and find ways to bridge these inequities. For example, in the popular Thor series, you see Loki, who was a frost giant, has limited consideration as an adopted hostage child, whose race was magically hidden so that he could fit in better, or the racially inappropriate representation of the Congolese people as animals in need of European saving in the famous Tintin in the Congo comic. One of the many ways of bringing about this transition is through education for all. Having worked in the field, I have seen that wanting to bridge the inequalities means teaching different students of different abilities to reach different destinations while they each come from different cultures and different contexts. We see educational inequalities in the way characters are portrayed in stories. In our action group, we want to look at stories that really bring out the multifaceted nature of education globally. We want to help change the rhetoric of what it means to be educated. And how can Technopoesis help to delve deeper into the stereotypes and deeply ingrained gender roles that we live by and execute without awareness every day? To understand this, we must make it relevant. Begin closer to home. We will use folk tales to break down the stereotypes created regarding the spectrum of gender, ranging from men to women. The goal is to establish that there is no difference. Is not to establish that there is no difference between the various genders, but that the differences don't make one lesser than the other. And so to understand ways to bridge the inequities that exist within social structures. When we explore oneness of gender, we strive to identify the person beyond their gender and not by the perceived notion of what they should be because of their gender. The biggest task is to make these complex ideas seem common to younger children. Well, that is where Technopoesis steps in. We can engage in many fun ways through drama, art, storytelling, the list is endless, to help create a consciousness of oneness. So I look forward to working with those of you who do sign up for the action group and experiencing a shift in consciousness together while having some enriching conversations on these topics. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shah. We now welcome our next change facilitator, Ms. Vishista Haldar. She is a 16-year-old student who is passionate about being an instrument of change. She is also the founder of Quarantine Talk, an emotional wellness resource for teenagers, and co-founder of the Healing Rooms, a physical and online platform for healers and practitioners of all sorts. She recently underwent a global youth leadership program that has equipped her to pursue her passion. Welcome, Ms. Haldar, and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. My journey of working with teenagers has solely been backed by storytelling. I noticed that through stories, one can make connections and realize that most of the stories we share are essentially the same. The transformation may have been different, but the journey was similar. It made me realize that we are part of a collective consciousness. So I've chosen stories in the area of healthcare and climate change. I learned I learned that my decision making was heavily influenced by how strong my mind body connect was. By just being aware of the fact that my body was responding to my thought led to a better understanding of myself. I plan to build awareness about thought patterns and its effect on our lives, identifying with our core needs and expressing our truth. I intend on using mindfulness activities, breath work, and fun stories to do so. Moving on to climate change. Climate change has reached a point where living is the only way to reverse it. There is a lot of awareness, yet there's so much more we can do. My focus would be more about love for Mother Earth and the feeling of oneness. I would like to explore sustainable living through stories, pointed activities focused on connecting to our ecosystems, Mother Earth, and how it can be made into a norm. I aim to use Dr. Coomi Vevaina's thinking process of Technopoesis, which will enable changing the thought processes of listeners from a state of competitiveness to cooperation. We conclude that we are essentially one. So do sign up for the action group and help us bring about a change. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Haldar. We move on to our next change facilitator, Ms. Ira Sisodia. After completing an MBA and a master's in law, Ira chose to give the commercial world a miss and started working with the Educational Media Research Center, Jodhpur, narrating and presenting over 50 films. Ira then took forward her socio-cultural interests, collaborating with Rupayan Sansthan under the legendary Padma Shri Komal Kothari, working with folk artists, Indian and international scholars, documenting, translating, transcribing, and building bridges between the receding ethnic arts and the emerging digital world. She has also served as a national executive for SPIC McKay, and she continues to coordinate the local chapter of the organization. City colleges, universities, including IIT Jodhpur, call upon her to lecture on the ethnocultural legacy of Marwar, and she sits on the boards of various educational institutions of Jodhpur. She is also the director of Kitabo, the Blue City Children's Literature Festival, a 3-day festival hosted by Desert Leaf Foundation, which has become the largest such festival in the country, bringing together thousands of school-going children and innumerable resource persons from far corners of the country. Welcome, Ms. Sisodia, and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Neena Nair, and hello, everyone. Needless to say, I'm very excited to be part of the GTPS, for it promises years of Dr. Coomi Vevaina's experience and research theory being put to practice and action. I strongly believe that each one of us should attempt to contribute our effort to give thrust to the change in our world that we desire to happen. I have many such experiences to share, and the most recent being Desert Leaf Foundation's attempt to bring Kitabo, the Blue City Children's Literature Festival, at Jodhpur, which is where I live. For someone like me who was born, raised, and married and living in a small, not so small now, town here, there were a lot of things that you felt were missing and had no opportunity to be witnessed or practiced. But as years went by, I strongly felt that a lot that wasn't there need not be cribbed about. It could rather be created, and a change in consciousness could be brought about gradually. So I wanted to make an attempt to bring into the city and the region around simple things that I desired for my children to see and learn and embrace and were not available, to be at least brought to the consciousness of other such children and parents alike. The phenomenal increase in participation of volunteers, children, parents, teachers, and others, and the selfless contribution of outstanding resources in the last 5 years is a testimony that the world conspires and helps to make happen what you truly believe in genuinely. Often people ask, why am I doing it and what will I gain? I believe that somebody needs to ignite the spark, and then like minded people with familiar consciousness keep coming together continuously to create a collective consciousness. The project of Earth Love Mission fascinates me. As a change facilitator, I am committed to initiating a discourse on the social, cultural, and educational borders across any kind of, through stories rooted deep within. For ideas to ferment, for young imagination to take wings and to swing the doors open for the world to come flooding in, I think stories is the panacea. Stories have the power to make you become the stories you believe in. So focus on stories with changed perspective will bring about desired consciousness. I will be using stories that are not preachy, but where the result is expanded consciousness. Race, color, age, ability, gender are all marks of identification and not an identity by themselves. And as a human race, there is only one identity, that of humanity. We are more alike than unalike, and our nature, qualities are more commonly similar than not. And as Linda Ellerby puts it, people are pretty much alike. It's only that our differences are more susceptible to definition than our similarities. The pandemic has proven more than ever before that ideas that bring solutions for a large group of community will be the ones that will be embraced and made to flourish, while those that are restricted to self will see rejection. Only that which can be embraced by a large world populace will thrive and reap benefits. And as action group members, your attempt will be to engage with people, create awareness, and bring about consciousness of oneness, unfurling free expression devoid of any preconceived notions and prejudices, exciting the young and old alike, to rejuvenate the embedded spirit of equality, a world without difference of color, race, age, and ability. I'm particularly referring to these issues as this is my chosen area of work to facilitate change through stories in any and many forms, using Dr. Coomi's thinking process of technopoesis. Similar souls wander in similar places, and similar souls wander in similar places. They may not know each other, but often they touch the same winds. They step on the same leaves. Their looks are lost in the same horizons, said Mehmet Murad Ildan, a Turkish writer. So do sign up as the action group members to be trained in the thinking process of technopoesis, to tell and listen to stories that break down the walls of race, color, age, ability, and to mete out the concept of Earth's love mission with the same infectious zest of Dr. Vevaina. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sisodia. We now move on to welcome Ms. Minal Miskin. Minal loves to work with children. She has pursued a master's degree in English literature and successfully completed a children's literature workshop from Mumbai University. She is currently teaching yoga to children at the Aditya Birla World Academy. She worked with Fast Track Kids, an after-school enrichment program where different subjects were taught using hands-on activities. She then worked with the Akanksha NGO for 3 years. Later, she worked with the Aditya Birla World Academy as Cambridge primary teacher. She has been actively involved with Birthfully Yours organization, headed by Dr. Coomi Vevaina. She also undertook a project headed by the RPG Foundation, where she trained government school teachers on how to make teaching and learning fun. However, she sensed something was amiss and wanting to explore the world beyond academia to be able to have a profound impact on children led her to learn yoga under the renowned yoga master Sri Parmanand Agarwal. She believes that practicing yoga helps one to bloom from within, and this in turn caters to emotional and physical well-being. Welcome, Ms. Meenal, and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nina. I love the term Dr. Vevaina uses for the change facilitators, fire in the belly, which energizes us all the more with the projects we all have taken in our hand. This quote by Mahatma Gandhi ji, "Be the change you wish to see in the world," inspires me, which has further motivated me to be the change facilitator for the Technopoesis project. I have selected stories in the area of land, water, and air, and will train the action group to narrate these stories using Technopoesis. We all are a part of this wonderful creation. However, humans have taken a lot more from the nature than giving it back and expressing gratitude. My stories will revolve around these areas where one will understand that we all are part of the same consciousness, and being in harmony is the key to joy and happiness. Technopoesis will also help you narrate stories in different ways, such as role plays, drama, poems, puppetry, visuals, and craft. From the Earth Love mission, we, the change facilitators, have chosen different areas, and we will train you to narrate stories using the 7 steps of Technopoesis to change the thought process from self versus other to all is self. We will suggest ways of creating your listener group. You will work on the same group for a year. At the end of the year, we will conduct an assessment on each of your listeners to see if Technopoesis has made a change in their consciousness. So come join us in this fun, exciting, and wonderful journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sisodia. Thank you, Ms. Minal. After hearing these wonderful fire in the belly change facilitators, we now move on to our Q&A session. And I request Ms. Devika Chatterjee, Director, Principal of JPCN International School, our Advisory Board member, and Ms. Donna Reen, Summit Coordinator, to conduct the Q&A session.
Hi, good evening, everyone. And after all the thought leaders that we heard today, I think we are more in the mode for reflection and quiet process rather than questions, but we do have a few questions. And there is a very, very basic question which did come to my mind also. Coomi, this question is for you, please. In a system that obsesses over quantitative assessment, emphasizes on cutthroat competition, as teachers, how do we encourage our students to adopt the all is self philosophy?
Thank you for the question. It is difficult, but it's not impossible. In my TEDx talk called Overhauling Education, I talk about the need to start out with changing our learning objectives and outcomes, our teaching pedagogy, the content, and the assessment techniques. If we are prepared to make radical and bold choices, the system has to change. That's the whole idea of the tipping point. If something does not work, then we need to innovate. We need to come up with something new. See what the innovators and the scientists are doing. There is a problem. Something is not working. So they create a solution. Similarly, in the field of education, I think we have great minds working together. We are on the right track. All we need is one final push. And I think the system has to change. Once we reach the tipping point, which is anywhere between 5 and 25%, change must occur. This is a law of the universe. So I'm rather optimistic that if we just join hands together and don't say, well, I'm insignificant, I'm just a primary teacher, I'm just a dance teacher. No, each and every person matters. So if we could really come together and work to change the system must change.
Thank you, Kumi. You are a great inspiration, and I think that will drive us and give us momentum while we go through these 12 months. Donna, would you like to take the next question, please?
Yes. Kumi, to you, how do we develop a sense of global oneness while students are exposed to increasingly divisive propaganda?
Well, making them critical thinkers, making them understand that divisive thinking is the root cause of every human problem on the globe. Whether it comes from a sense of color, race, political parties, anything, ideologies, anything. All divisions have caused the unhappiness that we witness in the world. And therefore, I think if you make your children really critical thinkers and creative in finding solutions, as a head of the department in the university, I always made a rule to my students. I said, you can come to me with as many problems as you want, but alongside come with 2 possible solutions. So we need to be involved in this and to really indicate that this kind of thinking is no longer desirable.
So very true. Another question, Koomi, to you. If we continue operating in negative ways, our species could become extinct. Are you not embracing a very bleak vision?
No, this is a very scientific vision. Science has told us this, that there have been 5 mass extinctions. If a species refuses to evolve, it becomes extinct. As simple as that. There is no other way, because nature preserves purpose and not species. That's as simple as it can be, and as factual as it can be.
Devika, any questions?
Yes, Koomi, there is another one for you. Is it idealism that makes you say that imperfect beings like us can create a perfect society?
This is a rather interesting question from whoever it came from. But let me tell you this. When the scientists sent the astronauts to the moon, did they say it doesn't really matter, we are imperfect, so it may go a little bit haywire, a few degrees here and a few degrees there? It didn't happen. Everything that scientists and innovators work on becomes successful only when it's perfect. So can we not have that attitude? Very interestingly, it was Henry Ford who said, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. And both ways, you're right. So if we try and make excuses saying, oh, we will never be that way, this is mere idealism. You need to work towards that dream, because that dream is going to really, really make this planet a happier place for us and for the generations to come.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Koomi. There is a question on the chat box, which I see. If one of the facilitators, if they can take that question, please. Would avoidance of recognition of gender solve the problem of gender bias? That is a question for...
May I answer?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
So well, what we want to look at is not that we don't see gender. It is not to avoid recognizing gender, but to look beyond the connotations that come with that gender. So the connotation that girls are a particular way, boys are a particular way, or the idea that boys and girls are the only 2 genders. So we want to look beyond the connotations that are attached to genders to shed that presumption that we have, and not say that I don't see gender, because you see that it exists, but the connotations that we have with it are created by us and are our projections. So it's about looking beyond that.
And I think, if I may add to that, that alternative sexualities have to be understood and respected in a very non-judgmental way.
Thank you. Thank you. I do agree.
Beyond that, it just goes beyond man versus women and the stereotypes associated with it.
If I may add, there's a very nice quote which says, seen from the moon, we are all the same.
Yes, absolutely, Ira, absolutely. Are there other
One more question to you. As I see it, multiple intelligence and social emotional learning, as we call it now, spiritual social emotional learning, SSEL, is covered through under Technopoesis. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, but Technopoesis goes one step further to spiritual intelligence as well. Emotional, social intelligences, all the competencies, they're all included in Technopoesis, which was actually created in 2013 and before. But the idea of spiritual intelligence is very strongly valorized by Technopoesis. In the year 2000, Dana Zohar and Ian Marshall brought out their very important book called Spiritual Intelligence, the Ultimate Intelligence. And after that, we have Tony Buzan and David King and a host of thinkers who have been talking about spiritual intelligence and making us understand, of course, spiritual, not religious, difference. So spiritual intelligence is the ultimate intelligence. If we really hone that, if we really develop that, all the intelligences get developed. So I think it's really time we started looking at that seriously. A lot of excellent school curricula stop at self and other, but we need to move to the next step, which is all is self.
Okay.
There is another question. Donna, are you taking that question from?
No, you can take it.
There's a question for Coomi. How do we prevent assessment in education becoming divisive?
Well, actually, I think there is a tremendous movement now towards assessing the process rather than the end product. I think there are some very, very innovative assessment techniques that are coming up. Actually, this began so long back with Madame Montessori doing just that.
I think
being able to add or multiply a host of things. The school report reads like so-and-so can fold a mat, so it's entire human being, the processes of learning that are being assessed. So I think that is what we need, rather than just a ridiculous exam, which summative exam, which just tests the knowledge and the ability to cram. I think it's time we tested processes. And for that, we need the teachers to be trained differently. So I think teacher training is extremely crucial. If we are going to overhaul the system, we really need to get our teacher training programs in place.
Coomi, there's a related question about the other most important stakeholder. You spoke about teachers. There's a question about how to bring about an attitudinal change in the parents. So if you can talk about that, please.
The answer is extremely simple. We invite you to the Parents Summit. This is the Education Summit. We invite you to the Parents Summit. In fact, we want parents and educators to be on the same page and work towards invite every educator to participate in it. If you see the themes, they're very, very vital themes, and they relate to educators as well. So I think parents should not
I think you are on mute.
No, I think Coomi's left the...
No, she's on mute, I think.
I just moved out.
Yeah.
I lost connection. It just went blank for a minute. So sorry for that. But I sincerely feel that parents intend the best for children, and so do teachers. So the two need to come together and not be really antagonistic. Today, I see, unfortunately, quite a bit of blame game with the parents saying the teachers aren't that good, the teachers saying parents are spoiling. I think we need to come together, and there needs to be a dialogue between the two.
Yes, Donna, would you
Any
like
more questions?
the next question? Yes, I do have a few. If Donna has a question, if you can.
No, I don't. There is one, yes. In a high-tech world, don't you feel that STEM will be enough to get a job? In what way can arts and humanities help society?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. Undoubtedly, STEM will help you get a job, but it will not help you retain that job. In order to be able to retain jobs, we need something more than just content knowledge. And STEM can provide you with jobs, make you an innovator, but the humanities and arts will make you a whole human being. So I think we need to understand that to be a complete and whole human being, the arts and the humanities are vital, not peripheral.
There is another question for the facilitator.
Are there any questions?
Yes.
Yeah, for the facilitators. They're
Yes,
wonderful
please.
people here working with me.
So the question is about story literacy. Since stories are largely considered a source of entertainment, how do we create a story literate community? If the facilitators, one of the facilitators, if you can please take that question. I think.
Ira could.
Yes, please.
No, I think the storytelling community has grown tremendously, especially during the pandemic. We see so many of them, and I have come across so many. That's one aspect. I think stories are within us, within each one of us. It's just that we now need to make it a different narrative with a different consciousness. And if we look at the same story with a changed perspective, not as has been told or passed on through the years, a lot can be done. And I think coming and joining hands together, there's a lot. I think the Coomi has ignited our consciousness, and we must actually come together. And a lot of our everyday experiences can be narrated as wonderful stories and experiences to turn tables. I think every community is using it, whether it be business community or whether it be schools or whether it be homes. I think narratives are an important facet which we just now at this point of time need to look at differently.
If I may add to this, we work together as storytellers. We call ourselves Wordfully Yours, and we aim to create 3 literacies in very, very indirect, subtle, and fun ways. Psycho-literacy, through stories, understanding yourself, understanding your emotions. There are amazing stories in the market today. Just one quick example that comes to mind is Byron Katie's story for children called Tiger, Tiger, Is It True? Where Tiger feels nobody loves me. And we've all gone through that. And how skillfully the turtle in that story really helps the little tiger to understand that, no, this is just his way of perceiving a situation. Yeah. So there are thousands of amazing stories which teach us self-awareness, which is psycho-literacy, awareness about the society, which is socio-literacy and social problems, and geo-literacy, problems of the world, and the need to really create a sustainable world. So all this can be done in a fun way. And when working with children, you come across some of the most amazing takes. For instance, just to give a quick example, if I may, I was narrating to kids at the SNDT Women's University, and we like playing with these old narratives, the traditional narratives. And I asked the kids, what would Snow White be if she was chocolate brown? And there was one little beautiful Bengali kid sitting with really chubby cheeks right in front, brown skin. And she looked at me and she said, then she wouldn't have found her Prince Charming. There, you have a ready consumer for all your fairness and beauty products. And I said to her that, no, I don't think so. I think brown is beautiful. And initially she looked at me like, woman, have you lost it? And, I made her say, I made her understand perhaps the white prince would like a brown skin, or perhaps a brown prince would like brown skin, perhaps he didn't even need a prince. And I stopped at that and I went on to others. When this kid's mother came to pick her up, she ran to her mother saying, Auntie thinks I'm beautiful. That is the power of story. Soon after the terrorist attack in Mumbai, we approached children, we talked to them about the importance of nonviolence, even in the face of violence, and we had the most amazing responses from children. So I think knowing their take, understanding the way they think, there is a lot of learning for us. And vice versa. So storytelling is one of the most powerful tools that we can use. But as Ira rightly said, it doesn't have to be preachy. What is the moral of the story? There, you kill my fun for a story by telling me to go to the moral. That's my take on it.
I wish to add that, one single story, which could be just an example of an everyday incident, can take you to different perspectives, right from religion to philosophy to geography to history to everything.
Absolutely.
And you really don't need any earmarked stories for anything. I think
and also stories which bring out the truth about children. When you indirectly, in fun ways, encourage them to tell their own stories, whether it's young children or adults, it's cathartic. It really helps them to view their lives in a different perspective, from a different perspective. So I think stories are extremely powerful. Change the story to change the world.
Koomi,
we can hear you for hours, I think. We have a few more questions to go through.
Okay.
Can we create change in the learning community when there are winners and losers in sports, film awards, book awards, military medals? We are up against the greater power of money and class. That is the question. I have a related question in my mind, Koomi. I'll just add to that. If we think only about equity, what do we do about excellence and how do we celebrate that? So when you are answering that question, do answer my question also of how do we celebrate excellence?
I can't get you. I can't get you, Devika.
I'll repeat the question.
If you can hear me.
Yes.
I can't hear the
I'll repeat the question, Koomi.
Just the latter part. Just the latter part of the question.
The last part was after the awards question. My question was.
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear now, Koomi?
Yes, I can very clearly.
So the last bit was my question to you, that how do we celebrate excellence if we are talking about equity? And of course, the question is about awards, the winners and losers in sports and film awards and book awards and military medals. So if you could relate the two and please answer.
Well, let me try and do that. I think Donna and I have been working along with my Wordfully Yours team for very many years now. And right from its inception, we made a rule that we're not going to offer awards. That in its own way freed children to do their best. They did not feel that they were going to be judged. And we had so many schools participate in our international program called Magic of the Word in 2011. And each of them had so much fun without the pressure. So I think I would like to de-link this idea of excellence only coming as a result of competition. Well, neuroscience tells us that we human beings are hardwired not for competition, but for cooperation. So maybe if we are really allowed to flourish, we will want to be the best versions of ourselves and not feel that pressure. all these activities that we've done over the years, we have never offered awards, and yet people have come in and they've enjoyed themselves. And then we get such success stories of so-and-so really becoming a star, just playing a role despite her dark skin in my play, My Fair Lady, and then becoming a singer of international repute. Well, it's just freeing. Nobody's being judged. Nobody's being told, oh, if you do this, you will get this. No, I mean, I'm not too much in favor of competition, but I'm not saying competition is not complete. It can be done away with. But as I said in my talk, perhaps as much as of souls as in food. That's all. Not in favor of it.
Donna, do you have some questions?
No, that's it, I think.
Donna, there are a few questions about registration and
yes, I've answered all of them.
Yes, you have. Would you like to take a moment to just tell everybody the process once?
Well, if you're excited and if you really want to contribute by curating stories and working with them, then our forms will be available tomorrow. The Google forms will be available on our website.
They're already opened. They're available now. And you can just go to our website.
And it's www.
GTP.
And please register, become a part of the action group, and let's get together to make the change. I know this has also become a cliche, be the change to see the change. But remember, all change is not necessarily good. So we need to be wise about the kind of change we want to bring about in the world. Any more questions? And I just want to add that I've had a lot of fun working on this summit and a lot of fun working with my amazing change facilitators. So thanks to each and every one of you. And of course, my summit coordinator and my lifelong friend, Devika. Thank you.
It's been a learning journey for us as well.
Miss Bugley has a question, I think. Miss Perrin Bugley has a question. Did she put up her hand? Perrin? We can't hear you. You're muted. Perrin, you're muted. Can you just mention it to her? We can't hear her.
No, Coomi, I was just listening to your interesting talk. Very fascinating, as usual. I have no question. I was just a good listener.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Bugley. Thank you. So then over to you, Neil.
So, Coomi, I think we don't have any more.
Right. So just over to Nina then.
Thank you, Ms. Chatterjee and Ms. Green for an engaging and enriching Q&A session. I now invite Ms. Shalanta Mascarenas, Senior School English Teacher, JPCN International Borivali, to kindly propose the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you, Dr. Vevaina, for an inspirational presentation. Many thanks also to the team of change facilitators comprising Ms. Priyanka Shah, Ms. Vishista Haldar, Ms. Ira Sisodia, and Ms. Minal Sawant. We know that you have worked consistently for the last so many months to put together a very meaningful action project. Our thanks also go out to all the participants who have joined us today from all over India and the different countries of the world. Do remember, as Dr. Coomi mentioned, to register for the Parenting Summit from the 8th to the 31st of January 2021. Kindly note that the sessions are especially scheduled only on the weekends for your convenience, as we need you to work collaboratively with us to bring about the change we want to see in the world. As has been mentioned during the summit, that the Google Forms for the Action Project are already available on our website, www.gtpsforchange.com. Please register for the Action Project and Empowering Stories for Technopoesis with the Earth Love Mission. Also, do remember to join us next weekend for 2 sessions, The first one being on the 5th of December 2020 on Mindful Leadership in Educational Leaders by Fiona Reynolds, who's the educational leader, adaptive schools trainer, director of teaching and learning, American School of Bombay. And on the 6th of December on Weaving the Social Emotional Quilt in Early and Primary Years by Mahara Goel, first chairperson, IBPYP Mumbai Network of Schools, and vice chair, IB Heads Association for the West Zone. Both of these meetings are going to be held from 4 to 5:30 p.m. on both the days. Do also remember to like and share the Global Tipping Point Summit on our social media handles, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Until then, thank you. Stay safe.